Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News for this Monday, the 8th day of July, 2024. And we have more information, more updates on our three main stories we've been dealing with. First and foremost, Joe Biden has made it clear that he is in the race to stay. He wrote a letter to the Democratic leadership today claiming that he is not leaving. He's in it to win it. Also, earlier today, he called the cable show Morning Joe and went on a wild tirade about staying in the race and talked against anybody that would want him to drop out, Democrat or Republican. Now, in another story, as if he needed this, infighting between members of Netanyahu's coalition could bring down his government. This is really, really pathetic what's going on there. Hamas warns that the hostage deal could collapse because of intense fighting in Gaza and also because of what Netanyahu said publicly about the red lines that Israel has, where they're not going to, budge on them. And the U.S., though, says public statements by each side don't really reflect the reality of negotiations. And finally, the French government is in limbo after the election. Confusion reigns while the Paris Olympics is just 17 days away. You really can't make this stuff up. All right, let's look at the headlines. Number one, Joe Biden rejects demands to quit the race. I am firmly committed, he said. President Joe Biden is firmly committed to staying in the presidential race. He wrote Democrat lawmakers on Monday, contending that he is the best candidate to beat former President Donald Trump. 9 Democrat lawmakers reportedly called for Biden not to run for re-election since the media reported on the president's health post-debate. I am firmly committed to staying in the race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump, he wrote in a letter to lawmakers. I have heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I am not blind to them. I can respond to all of this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe that I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024, he continued. I decline to do that, Biden said. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust of the voters of the Democratic Party that had placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make, not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors, not any selected group of individuals, no matter how well intentioned. The voters and the voters alone decide the nominee of the Democratic Party. How can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party, he wrote. I cannot do that. I will not do that. Now, the rash of opposition to Biden's reelection campaign is not supported by the leaders of the Democratic Party. House Speaker Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer still appear to support Biden. Now, this thing that was written to the Democratic leaders, most people don't believe that Biden himself wrote it. He had someone write it for him because it's very eloquent, very well stated, but it just doesn't fit the reality of the facts, does it? Now, political experts suggest that Democrats might be stuck with Biden. Here's the key. They might be stuck with him for 3 reasons. Why? The challenge of replacing him at this late date on all 50 state ballots, the challenge of moving money behind a new candidate, and the challenge of finding a candidate who would likely be a sacrificial lamb to run in Biden's place. In other words, he's seemingly got them between a rock and a hard place. That is Joe Biden. And as we've said all along, we can't see him dropping out. No way, shape, or form. He would have to be forced out some way. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So that's the latest on this. He made this clear because remember we said today, as DC gets back into business, the people come back from their 4th of July vacation, the lawmakers, it's going to hit the fan, and it did. All right, headline number 2, incoherent tirade. Joe Biden mocked for Morning Joe phone interview. Republicans roundly mocked President Joe Biden on Monday for doing a Morning Joe interview by phone on MSNBC, in which he defiantly vowed to stay in the presidential race. Biden, who is said to watch Morning Joe every morning, called into the show to renew his pledge after a total of 9 Democratic lawmakers reportedly called for his resignation. They're big names, but I don't care what those big names think, Biden said when asked about his opposition. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites in the party. All the data shows that the average Democrat out there voted, and 14 million of them had voted for me. Still want me to be the nominee, he said. Challenge me, Biden said to his critics about receiving the nomination at the Democratic National Convention. The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. Now, Republicans slammed Biden for allegedly using pre-written talking points during the phone interview, which turned into an incoherent tirade, as the Trump War Room X account dubbed it. Crooked Joe Biden is clearly reading from a pre-written script, and he still makes absolutely no sense, the Republican National Committee Research X account posted, X formerly Twitter, of course. Republican strategist Garrett Ventry said the interview will not calm Democrats' fears, calling into a morning show not on camera and clearly reading staff talking points, struggling through them, we might add, will not alleviate the Hill Democratic Party's concern or the frenzy they face from the press this afternoon, he said. Conservative communications specialist Ken Fernasso sarcastically underscored Biden's choice to phone into the show because letting your boss call into a cable TV show, hiding his face and possibly a stack of talking points and whiteboard full of answers is certainly a choice that will quell the concerns of the American people, he said. In other words, very sarcastically. And so what we have here is Biden's interview also caught the ire of some Democrats. To be clear, what at Joe Biden is trying to do right now is just gaslighting, said radical leftist Rania Beatrice. Rather than show he's capable mentally and physically, he and his team are attempting to silence us. As we state his genocide and Trump's fascism in the face, I refuse to be silenced, she said. All right, now let's move to Israel because we got some updates there and they're not pretty. Headline number 3, the government teeters as Ben-Gvir power play torpedoes key Shah bill, angering the partners. Far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir brands Shah's leader Ari Deri a lapdog of the left as a rift between the two parties deepens. It turns out that Ari Deri from Oslo until today is committed to the ideology of the left. Deri has always idolized the left, from Rabin to Peres to Gantz. He is the main player pushing the prime minister to compromise on policy, said a statement from Ben-Gvir's Otzma Yehudit party. Today, Berry opposes Minister Ben-Gvir joining the war cabinet, while Ben-Gvir is pushing to defeat the enemy on all fronts. Deri supports surrender and weakness, the statement said. Now, Deri's in this party there that is that basically Netanyahu needs for the coalition. In fact, Deri has twice been convicted of crimes, twice, yet he's still back in the leadership of the party there, of the Likud party, simply because he controls this party, the Shash party, which has a lot of pull and which, of course, has enough members in it to get Netanyahu over the top. So you have to have 61 members, parliamentary system, 120 seats. 61 plus coalition, and then you're able to govern. And he needs this Shas party, but Ben-Gvir says, this guy is just bad news. He votes against everything, blah blah blah, and so it's causing a big headache because both of them have threatened to leave the coalition. Now, whether they do it or not, is a whole other thing. But it's just a headache Netanyahu doesn't need at this time. Now, speaking of another headache, headline number 4, Hamas warns the Gaza hostage deal talks could collapse due to IDF action. The CIA director is expected to hold a larger summit Wednesday in Doha, that's in Qatar, by the way, to discuss the three-phase hostage deal of President Joe Biden first unveiled in Washington on May 31st. Hamas warned that the hostage deal talks held Monday in Cairo by CIA Director Burns could collapse due to actions by the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During a call with mediators, Hamas's chief Ismail Haniyeh said he held Netanyahu and Israel's army fully responsible for the potential collapse of negotiations, the group said. In a message on its Telegram channel, it warned that the IDF's renewed campaign in Gaza City could push a mediated ceasefire talk back to square one. A message posted there earlier in the day accused Netanyahu of placing additional obstacles in the way of the negotiations as he escalates his aggression and crimes against our people. That comes from Hamas, Hamas, and that's, something. Crimes against our people. Hamas is the biggest criminal organization the world knows right now. They're murderers. They don't care about their own people. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And so we'll see if these talks go anywhere. We can't see them happening anywhere. There's the fear that there's the push by the United States that they will, which is, of course, our next headline, as you can imagine, because they want to see an agreement. Listen to this. White House says public statements from Israel and Hamas don't reflect the true state of talks. In other words, what Netanyahu said, that here's our red line. We're not going to bend on any of these things. Hamas has to be destroyed. Its leaders cannot rule Gaza anymore. We have to work Gaza in such a way where they can't do this ever again, no matter who's there. And Hamas on the other side says, no, we got to have A, B, C, and D, which are totally opposite of that. And yet the White House says, no, 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 this is not what's going on. He said, on both sides, you see public comments that aren't necessarily fully reflective of the conversations that we're having privately with them and their interlocutors. National Security spokesman John Kirby says during a briefing, without getting into specifics. Kirby is the same guy that said when Hamas gave their last not ceasefire proposal before this, that it was only minor differences between that and the Israeli one, which the differences were really as far as the east is from the west. Hamas wanted Israel to leave within 7 days of agreeing, do a total ceasefire, and then after X number of days and releasing prisoners, starting to build Gaza, then they might release some of the prisoners, something like only 33 of them, maybe even not that many. And that includes ones who are either dead or alive. They make the choice. They're not going to tell you ahead of time. And so, Israel cannot obviously accept that. And so Kirby again says, well, that's not a big difference. Well, it is a big difference. The United States still trying to make a deal to make Joe Biden look good, to make him look like the great peacemaker, and it just isn't happening. Now, our final headline, let's go to our other main story, the three, France. The French government is in limbo after elections produced a hung parliament. France's legislative elections have resulted in a hung parliament with the National Assembly divided into three distinct blocks. Although the leftist coalition, New Popular Front, came out on top with 182 seats, it does not have an absolute majority. While Macron has asked Prime Minister Gabriel Attal to remain in his post for the time being, the shape of the future government looks uncertain. Attal actually said yesterday he was going to resign his post as Prime Minister, and Macron said, no, 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 we need some type of regularity here. The thing is uncertain, so let's try and show business as usual as much as we can. Now, it's totally confusing because, as we said, by far the popular vote went to the populist party of Marine Le Pen, but they only came in third when it came to number of seats because of the way it was arranged, the deal between Macron and this commie leader of this organization, where they worked together on these elections in 200 different districts, 200 different possible members that would come to their National Assembly, where they would say, okay, this one, you've got the stronger party. We'll back off and have our people vote for your guy. On the other one, we've got the stronger party, etc. And that's how they got the most seats. But the problem is Macron's between the rock and the hard place because it's a communist leader now. And as we said this morning, he wants to be the new prime minister of France. And all this taking place just 17 days before the Olympic Games, 2024 Olympics begin in Paris. And we can add one more thing about the leader of this communist party in France. Here's another headline. He refused to condemn the Hamas massacre. The far-left leader wishes to be the French prime minister. He wants to be it himself. Jean-Luc Mélenchon claims Israel committing genocide. He promotes a Syrian-Palestinian party member who spread unhinged conspiracy theories against Israel and seeks to promote recognition of a Palestinian state. We also said earlier he wants to tax the rich at a 90% rate and wants to spend 150 billion, that's a billion with a B, pounds. The article came from the UK Daily Mail, 150 billion pounds on climate change, on immigration, on all these social things. And it's not really fiscally responsible. But again, you vote the guy in. If he takes the lead, and he told Macron, he resigned because our party's got the most seats. No, they don't have a majority. That's the problem. So we'll see what happens. And it could be for the next year, the entire French Assembly will be just in limbo and we'll get basically nothing done. We'll wait and see. You really can't make this stuff up, can you? All right. So again, we just want to emphasize, have new people coming on every day here, that we have material that is free. We don't charge anything here. This is our ministry. We want to get the gospel out to the world and the truth of the Bible, the Word of God. So we have a website, Educating Our World, where we have 65 books on 11 different biblical topics, thoroughly documented, which is all free to download, along with about 500 videos now that we've done where you can download those for free. Now, with respect to the PDF files, the different topics. We have 12 books on Bible prophecy that go into great detail on all these subjects we talk about here on Breaking News, particularly the book 25 Signs We're Near the End. Please download it because the things we're seeing right now is amazingly fulfilling what the scripture predicted anywhere from 2,000 to 3,500 years ago about what the time of the end would look like. We need to know this. You need to understand this so it'll increase your faith so you can, not be disillusioned and discouraged when you see the events of the world happen. And you can know what to believe and what not to believe, because we also have a book, 45 Comments Mistakes About Last Days Bible Prophecy Cleared Up, where we clear up a lot of the misconceptions that are running around out there about what the Bible does have to say about the time of the end. All right, never a dull moment is there. I'll be back tomorrow with more. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly bless.